Kevin Sidebottom here, speaker, author, and trainer. And I teach sales organizations and leadership teams how to grow trust and influence with their customers and their teams, which in turn generate more revenue and higher profits. Today, let's talk about how managers gain trust with their teams and their employees. Well, by definition, a manager is someone who manages people and processes. Well, that sounds boring, doesn't it? Well, it is. They want to keep people moving forward so the organization keeps going. But here's what sales managers and any kind of manager really needs to be thinking of themselves. They're a leader. Why? Well, because they're leading a team of people. That's right. They have people underneath them that want to be able to eat and sleep indoors, so they want a paycheck. Or if you're in an organization that's nonprofit where you're trying to move people forward for a cause, they still want somebody they can look up to that's going to help them move forward. So as a manager, you're actually a leader. So we need to act like it. So let's talk about today, what are some aspects in how we can build trust with our teams and our employees as a manager, and how can we do so effectively? So we're going to go over what goes into some communication, how you can actually start building trust that way. We're going to talk about things we can do with our teams or our employees or the people in our organization. And then I'm going to show you one last thing of how you can become a rock star. So the first thing we need to do is actually be able to communicate well. That's right. We need to make sure that when we say something, it lands and hits the mark with those that we're intentionally engaging. What does that look like? Well, that looks like being an effective communicator. We need to make sure that wherever we're at, we're actually talking to the people in an environment that they can actually learn in. If there's explosions going off and heavy machinery, loud sounds, it's going to be hard to communicate for people to hear us. We need people relaxed and understanding where they can actually engage with us. Okay? 90% of communication is actually nonverbal. So when we type that email, think about that on how we can make sure that the thoughts are getting across and not taken negative, because most written word is actually taken negative. When we're on a meeting, turn on the camera, do our hair so people can see us, so when we're saying something that we're intending to be funny, they actually see it and accept it as being funny. Because when they can't see our face, when we have dry sense of humor, how well do you think that goes? Now, the other thing we need to do is make sure how we're showing up, what face we're wearing, what colors we wear, and the scents we wear. And if you really want to understand it, go into a department store. Go into the women's area and listen to the music and the different scents they have going on and the lighting. Go up into the men's and the kids area and see how that's changed. You'll understand that different people act differently in the different environments. We also want to make sure that because we don't probably have personality, descriptions of everybody and know their history, that scents can actually trigger people that raise their anxiety. So I typically don't wear different colognes unless I'm out with my wife. That's right. I don't. I do make sure I'm clean, because BO is going to send a whole nother message. But I definitely want to make sure that I'm not triggering people, so that when I talk to them, they can hear me. My tonality, the pace of speech, also has to match the person I'm talking to. When I was down in Florida selling, and I was in the Panhandle, well, they talk a little slower, have a southern draw to them, and they take things a little bit slower to really think about them. Well, it's not because they're dumber, but when a Michigander came down there and started talking to people really fast, what do you think they did? I literally had one guy go, "Stop. Just stop. Let me catch up." Seriously, he did that. But it helped me to understand, I need to really be thinking about this here on how I'm engaging people. Because if I'm not doing so well, I'm not going to hit the mark and they're not going to trust me. And it's not because I'm doing something wrong or trying to do something wrong. It's just something didn't hit the mark well. So we need to focus on learning and being good communicators. Okay? Now, let's get into the second thing we definitely need to be doing with our teams. We need to invest in them. By investing in them, I'm talking about doing at least one conference or one kind of training a year with them, so that way we're growing together. That's right. We need to look at this as an investment into our team. It's like doing crops. We got to cultivate the ground. We have to plant seeds. We have to water. We have to fertilize. We have to weed before we can harvest. And it takes time. So we need to be investing in our teams. And by doing these trainings or conferences, whatever they are, I mean, heck, it could even be an operation adventure where you take people up 25 foot in the air, harness them in, and make them do obstacles together. It could be even a little escape room. But whatever it is, we need to go and learn together and come back in and do a debrief where we all sit around and discuss what we learned and how it added value. And people are going to give different kind of insight to what they actually took away from it and how it can help them. That's actually going to trigger somebody else to go, I never would have thought of that. So we need to be sitting there doing the debriefs. Now, professional organizations do this all the time. You see it in football teams. They go watch the game film. Navy SEALs do a practice for their mission. They debrief, practice, debrief, practice, debrief to make sure that they're overcoming all the obstacles that can actually hinder them so they're successful. We need to do that with our team. What's one thing we can take away to help grow us? The other thing we need to do is read books. That's right. The written word is the best way to transfer knowledge. And reading books is where a lot of the scholars are. We need to read together. And yeah, it sounds boring because sometimes, it is. But it is actually going to help us grow. And again, we're going to read to take one or two things away that we can implement immediately, not 10 or 20 because we'll never get it done. But here's how I read 12 books a year. I read 10 pages a day. And in a calendar month, I can typically read about 300 pages a month. Typically, business and leadership and all these kinds of books are actually under 300 pages. So you can read 12 books a year. Pretty easy, simple process. And if you want to think about it, think of it as like the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise wins by taking small incremental steps, where the rabbit was like jotting off, getting tired, taking a nap, and the tortoise moved on by. So we need to make sure that we're making small incremental steps with our team. We need to invest in them. We need to talk about the books or a podcast or whatever it is we're going to do in our weekly meetings for 5-10 minutes. What's going on? What are we learning? So that way we're debriefing together and growing together. Okay? Now here's the last thing that's going to help you become a rock star. It's not overcommitting and underproducing. We need to do the opposite. Now the opposite is definitely not never committing to anything. Okay? We need to make sure that we undercommit, overproduce. So if we think something's going to take us X amount of length, we add a couple extra days to it so we can hit the target. Program managers do this. It's called float. And it's worked very well for them to hit the mark 90% of the times. Well, what happens when you actually achieve the timeline in a shorter amount of time? Well, you've undercommitted and overproduced. Think customers and your team members are going to like that if you're undercommitting and overproducing? Yeah, they're going to buy into you more and trust you more, and you're going to look like a rock star. So why not do that? Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, whether it's my trainings or whatever I have to offer. I'm glad to help. If you like this video, hit like, subscribe, share it with somebody that's going to benefit. I'm here doing these to help you. All right? We'll see you next time.